Welcome, everybody, to BPI's annual Powering Community event, Forging Ahead. I'm Kara Hendrickson. I'm the Executive Director of BPI. Can you believe that it has been 3 years since we've been gathered together in person? The world has certainly made some significant changes in that time. But one thing that hasn't changed is our collective desire to move the needle on racial, economic, and social justice. Tonight, you'll learn more about BPI's work to battle injustice, where we've been and where we're headed. But first, for a proper welcome, I would like to introduce Angel Pantoja. A partner in our work, Angel recently participated in a BPI panel presentation on higher education in prisons, an area of focus for BPI. After you hear from Angel, we'll be showing a video that speaks to where BPI has been, where we are now, and where we're headed. But first things first, without further ado, please help me welcome Angel Pantoja.
Kara, thank you for that introduction and for inviting me to be a part of this evening's program. As Kara just mentioned, I participated in a panel discussion about higher education in prison earlier in the year. It is a program that I feel very passionately about for many reasons. Currently, I work as a project coordinator for the Illinois Coalition for Higher Education in Prison. In this role, I oversee projects designed to basically just get more education into prison, support the students, support the educators, and sort of make that marriage work. This work is particularly meaningful to me because I just spent the last 22 years inside a prison. I was recently released last year, and actually that's not even quite true. I'm still currently in a work release program. During that time, so I went in as a juvenile, and very early on I had the choice, I had to decide, I got to choose what kind of man I wanted to grow up to be. And I chose education to be the tool to help me become that man. Pretty soon, I took classes and then I started teaching classes. For the last 12 years, I taught cognitive behavior therapy classes, I taught ESL classes. Any opportunity to teach, I was there. While I was there, I became a mentor to my peers, not because I had to, but because I wanted to make sure that they never made the same mistakes that I did early on. I'm proud to say that during that time, during those last 22 years, I acquired my GED, I earned my associate degree, and I was working towards receiving my bachelor's degree, which will be coming very shortly. Ultimately, the reason I'm able to stand here before you is because somebody decided to invest in us. Somebody decided that it was important that men and women on the inside receive an education. And it's because of that education, because I didn't get the job just because of charity, right? Like I had to come up, did an interview, I analyzed the system, and I showed them what I can bring to the table. And all that happened because I received an education, right? I will say this, I know we're gonna talk about what we can do, but I'm telling you right now that because of the partnership that we have at the ILCHEP with BPI, we've just recently been granted unprecedented access into IDOC. It is that access that right now is helping us influence and design policy that's gonna affect all the men and women that are currently incarcerated. And we're not just talking about affect them while they're in there, because eventually they will be released and they will be thrown out into society. And I say thrown out because that's sort of what it feels like. People ask me, what does reentry feel like? And I told them it's probably one of the loneliest processes I've ever felt. And if I didn't have an education to sort of help me, navigate the free world, I could have been in real big trouble. And because of BPI and what we're doing at ILCHEP and that partnership, we're making sure that everybody has a fighting chance when they come home. So as we start off tonight's program, know that your presence this evening and your support for BPI is absolutely meaningful. Right? It personally means something, not as a representative of my organization, but as to me as a person, as a human being. I want to thank every single one of you for being here tonight. I am honored to welcome you all, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you.
For more than 50 years, BPI has been fighting for racial, economic, and social justice. And to understand where we're going, it's important to understand where we've been.
This was a period of turmoil in the life of the country. The country needed new directions, a new sense of morality.
And so it was so important to have a voice who was able to demand rights on behalf of the residents and to look at what was happening in the city through the lens of those people whose voices had historically not been represented.
BPI was founded by Gordon Sherman, who was the chief executive officer of Midas Muffler. He felt that business and professional people had an obligation to help solve the inequities of society. Mayor Daley wanted to build an airport right off Lake Michigan in downtown Chicago.
And can you imagine traffic to the airport over a causeway? It was an absolutely crazy idea.
So BPI really was responsible for mobilizing an incredible communications campaign to really mount opposition.
The "Don't Do It in the Lake" slogan took hold. I think it was instrumental in killing off that strange idea. In the 2 decades of the 50s and 60s, Chicago built 18,000 public housing units. But where were they built? They were built almost exclusively in black neighborhoods.
Chicago was at the time often called the most segregated city in the country, and there was no better evidence than public housing in Chicago. Very isolated, very dense.
The clearest example of that was, of course, the several developments that were built along the Dan Ryan, high-rise housing, thousands and thousands of apartments.
It was discriminatory and created concentrated poverty and needed to be addressed legally.
Gautreaux is one of the longest running civil rights lawsuits in the country. BPI's role in that litigation is to represent the class of public housing residents seeking to redress race discrimination.
The initial remedy, a so-called scattered site program, where future building was supposed to take place primarily in white neighborhoods rather than black neighborhoods.
That case proceeded until it was decided ultimately by the Supreme Court of the United States. Alex Polikoff was the lead attorney. He had won unanimously on behalf of the Gautreaux public housing plaintiffs, so a remarkable victory.
BPI has played an important role for decades in its representation of public housing residents, working with the Chicago Housing Authority as sometimes partner, as sometimes critic, as catalyst for change.
BPI became a trusted partner and collaborator with government, with the residents, to ensure that as dense public housing was being demolished, that what grew in its place had support and resources.
The receiver steps into the shoes of the Public Housing Authority, develop what the plan for the redevelopment was, which was very community resident driven.
Now, investment is moving into those communities, And over the long haul, I think it's going to have a tremendous effect.
This is not about bricks and mortar only. This is about changing people's lives.
The mismanagement with respect to the nuclear power plants was egregious, and the ratepayers were being asked to pay for it. It lasted for years and years. It was immensely complicated.
Just like David and Goliath, here are the few BPI attorneys, one of whom was actually a summer intern, going to court.
In the end, Goliath was soundly beaten, and Commonwealth Edison was forced to pay refunds of over $1.3 billion.
We have a number of fellows who are here, who are really at the early stages of their careers, and they bring new perspectives and a lot of energy.
It's important to have different perspectives and opinions in this, and being able to bring in my lived reality and my lived experience, especially as a Latina, is important to the work of BPI.
The idea is you're going to come to BPI and work with us, whether it's for a month or two or a year or two or even more. You're going to get something out of this.
A lot of our fellows and a lot of our interns have gone on to serve the public in a number of ways.
It just opened up this whole world for me. It really made me want to dedicate my life to that kind of work.
There was a real need for more affordable housing in the whole Chicago region, not just in the city of Chicago.
And jobs were increasingly moving to communities where there was no affordable housing.
Teachers, firefighters, they work in the community and they can't live there.
BPI came to me with their big idea, which was to require that communities of opportunity, communities where the jobs were, also develop housing for the workers who work there.
We worked with a coalition of affordable housing advocates and created state legislation. So it was a landmark piece of legislation that has really helped to make a change.
BPI had worked for years in the area of education, pushing for smaller classroom sizes, waging a constitutional battle for equitable funding for schools in Illinois. And one thing we learned is the importance of starting young.
So BPI's devoted a lot of its work over the last few years in education really around directly working with community and parents to create those kinds of opportunities.
BPI was really the force behind bringing together a community coalition made up of parents, residents, educators, and other stakeholders all coming together to really focus on the developmental needs of kids age 0 to 8 in the Altgeld-Riverdale community.
That collaboration has seen pre-K enrollments go way up, and BPI has been central to this community-wide effort to really open the eyes of these kids to the world of opportunities that are available to them.
MacArthur Foundation selected BPI as only one of 15 institutions to receive this award worldwide. It was confirmation, affirmation, that BPI's work is important and it is having an impact. They wanted to transform their system, juvenile justice in Illinois, from one that was really corrections-based to one that was more rehabilitative, more treatment-focused.
The work with BPI was centered around how do we get to this vision that we all see of a place where we see kids who come in conflict with the law as, human children who need some help, and that our job is to help them be successful.
As a result of that plan being in place, the number of incarcerated youth in Illinois youth prisons has declined from about 1,200 to less than 300 today.
The settlement agreement sets out the roadmap for what we hope will ultimately be the resolution and the bringing to reality of the relief of that lawsuit.
No one could have imagined that there would still be the case today, but change happens in lots of different ways, and because we're willing to stay in the fight for so long, you do eventually see change.
Our country, our state, and municipalities have created policies that have led to the overcriminalization and mass incarceration, particularly in Black and brown communities. And we're working to change that.
We have too many of our residents in the state of Illinois ensnared in the criminal legal system and incarcerated in the Department of Corrections.
We work to decrease contacts with the criminal legal system and to mitigate the harms experienced by people who are incarcerated.
Our work is about reducing the size of that system, reducing opportunities for people to be trapped in that system, and also in recognizing the dignity and humanity of people who are currently incarcerated.
The video of the murder of Laquan McDonald went public, and there were protests and much more focus on the challenges of policing and the need for police reform.
BPI helped form a coalition called GAPA that worked almost 5 years to build from the ground up a community accountability structure over the Chicago Police Department.
All throughout that process, BPI was playing a critical role in working with the community, but also working with government actors, serving as that incredibly important go-between. And a lot of that work has culminated most recently in the passage of ECPS, Empowering Communities for Public Safety.
There was a lot of robust engagement in order to get to this point, but it really started with community.
BPI's work in the public interest has really been about righting wrongs.
We work in partnership with communities, with neighborhoods, with individuals across Chicago and across Illinois to move from vision to action.
They don't just do law. They build the coalitions to build support for it.
You can't just have a bunch of policy wonks pushing to get stuff done. You need to make sure that folks who have roots in the community are just as invested.
Over the years, BPI helped to spawn a number of organizations. You might say that BPI was a kind of incubator.
This is an organization that follows through. They think of the policy, they research it, they write it, they gather support for it and build coalitions around it, and then they implement it.
It requires tenacity. It requires continuous effort, and that's been a hallmark of many of the things that BPI has done over the years.
BPI is at a moment now, a lot like the moment of our founding, where the calls for justice are urgent, and when we are being called to live into our values with action.
I think BPI has to continue to do what it has always done, and that is to be the advocate, be the voice, be the legal foundation upon which social justices move forward.
Now is the time for us really to put our foot on the gas with our coalition partners, in partnership with system stakeholders as well, and to really create the change that we all want to see going forward. There is a lot of work ahead for us. There's a lot of opportunity ahead for us, and now is the time for us to seize it.
Well, good evening again. I'm proud to share with you the story of BPI. It's the story of an organization that has been fighting the hard fights, digging for root causes, and tackling issues that no one thought could be won for more than 50 years. It seems only fitting that I start tonight on a note of gratitude. I am grateful for everyone who has made tonight possible. To our sponsors and host committee members, your support of our work is invaluable. Thank you. To our partners in this work, we value our connections with each of you and are glad to stand with you in this movement for change. To our board of directors, this event and BPI would not be what we are without your leadership. To our staff, you inspire me every day. And to each of you, just by being here tonight, you are each a part of our fight for racial, social, and economic justice. Thank you. And candidly, I'm just glad to be with you in person. As some of you know, I started this role at BPI 2 weeks before a global pandemic. It's been quite a challenging couple of years. Though faced with this challenge, I'm proud to say that BPI has been meeting the moment. Across our work in police accountability, in criminal legal systems, in housing, and in early childhood education, we've launched new programs and had victories in several long-standing efforts. And I'm going to tell you about some of them. Perhaps as much as any issue that we've faced, the calls for justice in policing and in public safety have put BPI's work on the front burner and on the front page. With our GAPA and CARPER partners, we achieved a hard-fought victory in the Chicago City Council last year with the passage of the Empowering Communities for Public Safety Ordinance, which finally addresses the previous lack of any community oversight of the Chicago Police Department. It creates 22 district area councils and the new Community Commission for Public Safety, tools that are designed to provide accountability and co-creation of public safety in Chicago. We have called for better systems of ensuring that police officers are properly certified by the state of Illinois, for ending potentially discriminatory and harassing contacts between the police and community members, for enforcement of the consent decree governing the Chicago Police Department, and as part of a coalition of Latinx community leaders, for the development of a foot chase policy that would reduce the risks of deadly uses of force. We know that interactions with the police can be the entry point to the criminal legal system, particularly for members of our Black and brown communities. And we've also worked to change this system that all too often fails to deliver justice. In partnership with Cabrini Green Legal Aid and the Illinois Justice Project, we've launched Justice 2020, a network of policy advocates, grassroots organizers, community members, and others that seeks to disrupt the cycle of criminalization and incarceration. You've already heard Angel talk briefly about the importance of higher education in prison. BPI has worked in partnership to identify and call for much-needed change in our Department of Corrections that would bring these educational opportunities to many more who want them. For those exiting incarceration, we've designed and implemented a program to provide housing assistance to those participating in the drug court treatment program in Cook County. The 18-month pilot reinforced the need for housing assistance for those leaving the criminal legal system and to provide a pathway for re-entry and success. In addition to our work in policing and criminal legal systems, housing continues to be a core part of BPI. During a time when our homes became literally our sanctuaries, we continued to advocate for public housing residents across the city in the ongoing Gautreaux litigation. We also embarked on an ambitious new two-generation economic mobility demonstration program that includes services for families receiving housing assistance to enable their paths to financial security and wealth building. And because we know that housing is fundamentally about community, we were proud to support the installation of the Ida B. Wells Light of Truth Monument in Bronzeville, dedicated to community investment and truth-telling. If you haven't gone to see it, I would suggest that you do it. It's amazing. Finally, at a time when caregiving and school options for children were radically reshaped, we continued our support for the Altgeld Riverdale Early Learning Collaborative. Despite the intense challenges faced by families. Last year, the Alt-Geld community had a rate of pre-kindergarten enrollment higher than the city average. Now, at its 10-year anniversary, we're celebrating the success of this enduring collaborative and its next phase of leadership as a community-based and community-led resource. This is a time of impact and action for BPI. And that action is being led by our incredible staff. We have so many new colleagues who have joined us just in the past 2 years. They are driving us as an organization to be a catalyst for systemic change. Let's give them a round of applause. Systemic change, that is the special sauce of BPI. We know that barriers to justice and equity run deep, and so we go deep. We work to get to the root of problems and address them in a way that produces long-term change, shifting the balance of power towards equity. And so, with clarity of purpose, as we look ahead, we are trained on 3 priorities for the future. The first is housing. We are continuing to fight for more authentic housing choice, free of barriers of structural racism, unaffordability, and discrimination based on source of income. The second is the criminal legal system. We're fighting for a state where fewer people have contacts with that system. And if an interaction occurs, those involved encounter justice, equity, and respect for human dignity. The third is police accountability. We believe that all communities and all people are entitled to public safety. We are focused on transforming the relationship between the police department and the communities that it serves. And all of our work and our organizational life is grounded and guided by our focus on equity, inclusion, and shared power. In short, we are forging ahead in the fight for justice. Now, we know that it takes everybody in this room, and many who aren't in this room, to holistically create true systemic change. That's why we started the Building Public Interest series, an open lunchtime dialogue that sets out to educate and activate a diverse audience around issues of justice and equity. Just this year, we've hosted sessions on public health, higher education in prison, and the right to reproductive choice. If you haven't attended a Building Public Interest event yet, please join us. Our next one will be July 20th, and you'll hear from the city's new Inspector General, Deborah Witzberg. You're all invited because if there were ever a time that called for informed and determined community, committed to collaboration in the public interest, it's now. There is no doubt that these are challenging times. When violence plagues our city, when we face a seemingly unending public health crisis, when rights we had come to take for granted are under attack, when true racial equity can be elusive, these can be tough days. We risk becoming overwhelmed, resigned, disengaged. What can we do? What is the recourse to insidious structural injustice and racism? What is the recourse to hate? It is forging ahead. It is taking action. It is Julie, Karen, Ariel, Lauren, Betsy, Nancy, Sharice, Sydney, Suresh, Amy, and Tammy, your incredibly dedicated and hardworking BPI staff. And it is you. It is each of you. And it is us. It is all of us together. We're deeply grateful for all of you who partner with us through your support of BPI's work. Continue to stand with us in this fight until, at last, the structural racism and systemic oppression is righted. until, at last, every person has the right and opportunity to have their fullest life lived in a thriving community free of systemic barriers. With this common purpose, let's forge ahead together. Now, please help me give a warm welcome to Alexis Lambre from the Jazz Institute of Chicago, who will be performing a personal favorite of mine and many in this room, At Last, by Etta James.
My love has come along. My lonely days are over. And life is like a song. Oh, yeah, at last. The skies above are blue. My heart was wrapped up in clover. The night I looked at you, I found a dream that I could speak to. A dream that I could call my own. I found a thrill to press my cheek to. A thrill that I could call my own. Oh, yeah, yeah, and you smile, and then the spell was cast, and here we are in heaven. For you are mine at last. At last.
Good evening. I'm Steve Galler, Senior Executive Vice President and General Counsel of the Habitat Company, a very proud sponsor of tonight's event, and also a very proud member of BPI's Board of Directors and a member of the Fundraising Committee. And on behalf of the larger Board of Directors and the entire Fundraising Committee, thank you very much for being with us this evening.
Good evening. I'm Pam Daniels-Halisi. I am Managing Director of Community Lending at BMO Harris Bank. I'm also a member of BPI's Board of Directors. And these 3 years, it's been a while. It's so good to see all of you. So thank you again. I want to echo thank you for coming and being a part of this. I, at this time, would like for the BPI Board of Directors to please stand. Thank you for your service, and thank you for attending tonight's event. Thank you.
Absolutely agreed. The pandemic has greatly impacted all of our lives in so many ways. And that's why events like this are truly to be savored and appreciated when we can get together with old friends and board members we haven't seen in person for 2.5 years, meet new friends, and all come together around causes that we feel passionate about. That's really why we're here tonight. As you saw depicted wonderfully in the video and heard from Kara, BPI has a very long and proud tradition of galvanizing around issues, concerns, and systems that are at their core unjust. From advocating for early childhood learning, to reducing the footprint of the criminal justice system, to enhancing police accountability, to a cause that is near and dear to Habitat and me, housing, particularly public and affordable housing. BPI has worked tirelessly for over 50 years to work to address, to cure systemic and racial injustice in the world.
Steve, what you have said is so true to me, and I feel that BPI has a reputation that they've garnered over the years to be a stickler and to stick to the critical issues that impact us all. And with that, I think that the reason why they are able to do that is they center their work on righting wrongs. And with that also is to make sure that we fight for issues that improve the justice, improve the equality and equitability in our society. This is the main reason why I serve on the board of BPI and why I support BPI philanthropically.
Likewise. And now Pam and I would like to invite you, encourage you, please, to consider supporting BPI with a gift through your phones to Forging Ahead at 44321. 44321 to type Forging Ahead, and a link will come to your phone and you could make a donation. We really would appreciate it. As you've seen, BPI has a wonderful history and really could use your support. So thank you.
As you can see, Steve and I both believe in BPI. We believe in the work that BPI has done. We believe in the work that BPI is doing, and we believe that BPI will be called to do work in the future. So once again, I want to thank you all for coming out and being a part of this event, offering us encouragement, offering us your partnership, and offering us your contributions. On behalf of the BPI board, once again, I want to thank you all for joining us tonight. Thank you.
And now it is my pleasure to introduce a fellow board member and also president and CEO of the Community Investment Corporation, Stacy Young.
Thank you, Steve and Pam. That was wonderful. Thank you, BPI. They mentioned my title now, but you might all remember me from my internship at BPI in 1989. So when I got the call that Leon Walker was nominated for the BPI Champion of the Public Interest Award, I was not at all surprised. Leon is truly a man who walks the walk. Walker isn't just a joke for him. He has been a true partner in community development for many years. When he says he wants to make a difference, he brings intention to his work, and he has contagious energy and enthusiasm for everything he does. Everyone in Chicago's community development space knows that Leon is a true visionary who makes things happen. So I'm pleased to introduce this year's Champion of the Public Interest Award to Leon I. Walker of DL3 Realty. Unfortunately, Leon was not able to join us tonight, but he wanted to express his gratitude and appreciation in a video that we're going to see now.
Good evening, BPI community. I am honored to receive the 2022 Champion of the Public Interest Award at BPI's first in-person event in over 3 years. I wish I could be there with you in person, but I was called away to join an Urban Land Institute delegation to the Virgin Islands, where we will be advising the Virgin Island Housing Authority on how best to deploy over $1 billion in federal funding to replace 3,000 obsolete public housing units, through new construction and a comprehensive community plan to create a more equitable and inclusive economy for local residents. So while I wish I could say I am enjoying fun and sun in paradise, we are working 10 to 12 hours a day touring and compiling recommendations into a report for Governor Albert Bryan Jr. But this is exactly the kind of work we do at my firm DL3 Realty, and now I get an opportunity to test our venture development real estate investment strategy in an international market. Again, I am so honored to receive this award, which recognizes our community development work and our focus on high-impact commercial real estate investments that create a ripple effect in our neighborhoods. Whether a new grocery store in a food desert, medical clinic in a healthcare desert, call center creating thousands of jobs in a historically disinvested community, or affordable luxury rental communities, we always work with our leading corporate stakeholders, nonprofit partners, and local government to bring critical services, jobs, and opportunities that create a ripple effect in our neighborhoods. We have created over 3,000 jobs on the South Side in the past 5 years, and we have a goal of creating 10,000 head of household jobs by the end of the decade. We are stronger together, and we must work together, not just for charitable reasons, even though the kinds of investments we make are the right thing to do, but because there is also a business case. There is a business case for investing in our neighborhoods, and I am pleased to work with Mayor Lightfoot and her administration, and cannot thank her enough for making the clarion call to our corporate stakeholders and foundations to join in the Invest Southwest revitalization effort. As Commissioner Cox is often quoted as saying, Chicago's downtown is the heartbeat of our city. But the neighborhoods are our soul. And I say to you, there is no life worth living without a soul. It is investment in our neighborhoods that will help us regain the population we need to thrive as the economic hub for the state of Illinois, and to continue to thrive as a global 50 city that is a magnet for capital, talent, and resources. Isn't that the future we all want to see? As I was thinking about this award, I focused on the word community. What is the meaning of community? A group of people who share geography, culture, or heritage? That is true. But to forge ahead, we need to expand that definition and look at the greater Chicago community and our common interests, which will ultimately inspire collective direct action. That is what we are doing at DL3 Realty with our venture development investment strategy, which is creating a more equitable and inclusive city, but also with our Chicago Emerging Minority Developer Initiative, or CIMD for short, that's lifting up young entrepreneurs so that they can get a solid foothold in commercial real estate development. And through our sponsorship of 2 scholarships at the Marshall Bennett Institute of Real Estate at Roosevelt University, so that we help prepare the next generation of venture developers. Thank you, BPI, and thank you, Ryan Green, for accepting on my behalf. Teamwork makes the dream work. Congratulations to Candace Moore for all of her work as Chicago's Chief Equity Officer. There is power in community, in shared interests, and we are stronger together. God bless, and thank you all for your support of BPI and for your participation and attendance tonight at this wonderful event. Good night.
So Leon truly is a great partner, whether he's here or in the Virgin Islands. It does happen to be his anniversary today, so it's nice that his wife could join him, I bet, in the Virgin Islands as well. And we truly thank Leon for all his work in this space and his commitment to our neighborhoods. Accepting the Champion of the Public Interest Award tonight is Ryan Green. Ryan is Chief Investment and Administrative Officer at DL3 Realty. Thank you so much, Ryan.
Good evening, everyone. As Stacy said, my name is Ryan Christopher Green, and I am Chief Investment and Administrative Officer at DL3 Realty. I am also a proud BPI alum and I feel incredibly honored to stand here as Leon's proxy to accept this award. As you heard from Leon, at DL3, we work tirelessly to attract institutional capital and bring development, catalytic development to communities on Chicago's south and west sides. It is our passion and our vision to improve the quality of life for all Chicagoans. On behalf of Leon and the DL3 team, thank you for this recognition. I've got one more thing I'd like to say and take an additional moment to announce a new longer-term partnership that we're developing with BPI, where we will collaborate with the community in our collective work. In this partnership, we will center community engagement and voice, both critically important to the core values of both of our organizations. Stay tuned for additional details. Additionally, I would like to thank BPI for the role it played in my early professional development, and I'm locking eyes with Adam Gross, who was instrumental, in that. My summer at BPI as an intern doing litigation support and research and writing after my 1L year confirmed that I am way more suited to deal making and transactional work and consensus building instead of sort of the long, drawn-out, contentious litigation. However, thank you, BPI, for your endurance and tenacity. That said, the summer also introduced me to distinguished professionals committed to impactful and powerful work. Those values never departed from me. BPI greatly influenced how I center social justice and equity in my work, both professionally and personally, and my commitment to advancing an equitable built environment where everyone can thrive. Looking forward, it is my hope to continue to hone these points of alignment as an active member of BPI's Alumni Association. So again, thank you on behalf of Leon Walker. Thank you on behalf of the DL3 team who's here, and myself.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jennifer Salvatore, founding partner of Salvatore Prescott Porter & Porter, but most importantly, I too am a BPI alum, and I'm so happy to be here tonight. I was actually the first recipient of the Polikoff-Gautreaux Fellowship almost 25 years ago now, which is really, really hard to believe, and it's been so nice to be back here tonight and see old friends like my office mate, Nick Brunick, from 1999, and Julie Brown and Adam Gross, and I'm sorry, Jonathan Caden, who was also my office mate, is not here tonight, but I am thrilled to be here to honor another BPI alum, someone that I have the distinct pleasure of introducing and someone whose career really speaks to many of the tenets of what BPI stands for. I have the distinct pleasure of introducing this year's BPI Alumni of the Year, Candace Moore, Chief Equity Officer for the City of Chicago. You will soon see why Candace is so very worthy of this recognition. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming Candace to the stage.
Thank you, everyone. I just want to start off by saying thank you for this really great honor. When I think about the time that has passed since I was a doe-eyed legal intern at BPI, but more specifically when I reflect on the last couple of years that our city and our world has had to grapple with, I don't take for granted how much of a blessing it is to stand before you this evening. I want to thank Kara for her leadership of BPI. I want to thank the staff that work day in and day out, including the work you do guiding, mentoring the next generation of public interest lawyers. And I want to thank all of you who have gathered here today who support this great organization and the work it has done to push our city closer to justice. I'm going to say the famous last words, which is I don't want to be before you long, but I do want to share quickly two important things. The first is a lesson that I've gotten from my time at BPI that I still carry with me today, and that is a lesson about the role of a community lawyer. So if I were to ask you to rewind the clock and imagine me as an eager law student who comes to this work with a heart for public interest, but as most eager law students are kind of all over the place, I want to share how in that moment I think about myself trying to figure out what kind of lawyer I wanted to be, but really open and soaking up every experience like a sponge. So here I come in my summer fellowship at BPI, and I'm excited to work on their education project. I anticipated that it would be mostly writing memos, maybe doing some research, but what I found is that I had the opportunity to do this really great project that I saw up on the timeline, preparing for the work in Altgeld Gardens. And so I found myself traveling with then Kim Zalent, who was working at BPI, going down to Altgeld Gardens, which is a community I really didn't know much about and hadn't ever traveled to before. And as an ambitious law student, you think you're going to go down there and it's like, sure, they want to hear all of my great ideas. I'm so excited to be in this room. And what they needed me to do was take notes, help set up the room, and really support people in the meeting. And I think the point of it and what I learned both in that moment but throughout my experience there is that's okay. That's exactly what I needed to be doing. It taught me that the role of lawyers, this idea that we are knights in shining armor coming into communities, telling them exactly what needs to be done, is a myth. It is a fantasy when we think about lawyering. But instead, when we think about community, we need to ask ourselves, how can we be in service? And whatever that service is. As lawyers, we have great privilege. We have the ability and the opportunity to learn, to really think about the art and the study of law, but we also need to recognize that we have information that we hold. We have networks that we hold. We have partnership that we hold. And so the opportunity and the privilege to be with community allows us the opportunity to really think about what does it mean to be in partnership? What does it mean to center community and listen to what they need and listen to what they advocate for and ask ourselves, how can we be in service? And so I remember my time at Altgeld Gardens as sort of a crash course in what it means to just show up, to be in proximity, to be in space, and to be in partnership, and to bring all of the things that lawyers can offer, but at the end of the day, be a good partner and a steward with community as we work to build the solutions that they see as so important in their lives. The second lesson that I want to share is one that I am actively learning each and every day as I serve as the city's Chief Equity Officer. And that is the lesson of what it means to actually build the work of equity. So part of the reason why I said yes to this job was not just because I was naive or crazy, but instead I was trying to meet a craving that was growing inside of me. As a lawyer, I've had the privilege of being a partner and a leader in some amazing advocacy efforts, not the least of which was the last case I did when I was at the Chicago Lawyers Committee, which led to successfully preventing a top-rated majority Black elementary school from being closed, National Teachers Academy. However, as big as the wins were, I found myself frustrated by all of the failures along the way that had created the problem in the first place. And I wasn't convinced that institutions were fully learning the lessons needed to prevent these issues from happening again. And candidly, I started wondering if it was truly possible to build the vision of equity that I was holding people accountable to. So when the question came before me, will you take this job as equity officer? I said yes to the idea of trying to start something in the city of Chicago that had not been done before. I said yes because I knew that I was going to get on the nerves of whoever took this job. And so why wouldn't I step up myself and challenge myself to take on the role? And for the last 3 years, it has been hard. I have had the joy and the pains of learning what it takes to operationalize a vision of equity in a very imperfect world. In spite of every challenge, setback, and disappointment that I've seen along the way, I stand here proud nonetheless. Proud of every win, every step forward, and every moment of joy me and my team have earned along the way. In fact, next week, we are excited because we are going to culminate a 9-month training of 10 city departments who have dug deep into the question of what does it mean to advance racial equity in city government, and who all are creating a racial equity action plan. The second cohort is right on their heels and starting their work now, and our goal is by Q2 2023, we will have trained nearly all city departments, and they will all have created and be accountable to advancing racial equity through their action plans. I am also really proud of leading work like our Racial Equity Rapid Response Team and our Community Safety Coordination Working Group, because both are examples of how we can create fundamentally different relationships and partnerships with community members that allow them to be honest, and they are very honest, and hold us accountable at the same time as being partners with us and actually building the solutions that are so desperately needed in our communities right now. At the end of the day, these are the efforts that matter most to me, because my lesson learned and the lesson that I'm learning about building equity is that it's not just about outcomes. It is absolutely about process. We all want results that create fair and just access to opportunity and resources that provide everyone the ability to thrive. However, we will not get there with just add-ons or a series of programs or initiatives alone. We must think about the add-ins. We must change how we do the business of government. I often say, and I say this to my team and to many of our partners, that we have to stop thinking about equity as some finish line that we're trying to attain, but instead actually thinking about it as a muscle. We have to build and exercise constantly our muscle for equity, and we want a muscle that is ultimately strong enough to build a more fair and just Chicago. So with that, I want to thank you all. It has been a privilege of a lifetime to do this work in this particular moment, and I'm grateful for this honor and for all of you as my partners in justice.
Good evening. It's a great honor to be with all of you tonight. My name is Nick Brunick. I'm a partner at Applegate and Thorne Thompson, which is an affordable housing and community development law firm. And we are very proud that we are home as a firm to 5 BPI alumni, which I hope is a bit of a record. I'm a very proud member of the BPI board. I was also the second Polikoff-Gautreaux Fellow after Jenny Salvatore, so I followed after her, which was very difficult to do, and then spent 3 more years on BPI staff before joining the board. So it's a tremendous pleasure to be with all of you here tonight, to be with friends, old and new, to be with my old bosses who taught me how to be a lawyer, like Adam Gross and Julie Brown, to be with fellow board members and fellow coworkers who I worked with at BPI, like Kara Hendrickson and Jenny Salvatore. It's just an absolute privilege to be here. As you saw and heard tonight, the work of BPI is really the work of fulfilling the promise of America. It is the work of Dr. King and Frederick Douglass and Fannie Lou Hamer. It is the work of our founding mothers and fathers. It is the work of Alex Polikoff and Julie Brown and every member of the BPI staff and board. It is the work of all of us. Voting rights, affordable homes, safe neighborhoods, equal justice under law for everyone, good schools, rebuilding our city from the rubble of racial and economic segregation, and saving the planet that sustains us all. This is the work of BPI. This is our work. This is the work of saving what President Lincoln called the last best hope of Earth. When President Lincoln spoke those words, he was referring to our democracy, our republic on the eve of the Civil War as the last best hope of Earth. And I agree with that. But I would also like to suggest that we are the last best hope of Earth. And we must think anew and act anew. We must break down worldly barriers of race and class and creed and neighborhood. We must organize and build political power to address the racial and economic and social injustices in our midst. That's what BPI has done for over 50 years, and it's what we must continue to do. And if we do that, we will keep our republic. We will continue the effort to perfect our union. We will extend the blessings of liberty and freedom to all and fulfill the promises of the Declaration of Independence. So let's forge ahead together, as so many have said tonight, and continue this work together. Ariel.
Tough act to follow. Just kidding. Hi, my name is Ariel Hairston, and I am staff counsel for BPI's criminal legal system and the newest member of the BPI staff. It seems like being alum of BPI is a theme this evening. I am also an alum. I was a 2018 fellow. And, those of us on stage and those of you in the audience know firsthand the lessons learned and the skills developed while at BPI. Those lessons and skills have served us well during our careers and will serve the next generation of interns and fellows as they walk through BPI's doors into their future aspirations, hopes, and dreams. To commemorate our collective work at BPI as alums, I invite you all to join me on stage at the close of this year's program so we can all take a BPI alumni picture at the close of the remarks this evening.
Thank you, Ariel. Now we can give her a round of applause. So as we forge ahead, let's embrace that spirit of solidarity, and let's make a world and a city that is more racially, socially, and economically just.
My love has come along. My lonely days are over. And life is like a song